If you're looking for a board game where its heart and soul is designed around stealth gameplay and tactical maneuvering with a team or squad of different assets, Earth Under Siege is going to be a game you're not going to want to miss. Hello, welcome to Quackalope, thank you for joining me. Today, we're talking about Earth Under Siege, a tactical stealth dungeon crawl, where you're going to be exploring through a series of missions in this unfolding campaign, doing your very best to avoid detection as much as possible and peek around corners while having your gun holstered and ready for the draw. In this video, I want to showcase some of the elements that make this a unique dungeon crawl, focusing specifically on what makes the stealth elements of Earth Under Siege stand out. I'll be honest, there's still a lot more in this prototype that I need to dive into over the course of the next few weeks, and I wanted to get something out for launch day to get your attention raised, to let you know about this project so that you can pay attention, rereading the updates, and really check out to see if it's something you're interested in. But in the next few days and the next few weeks, we'll be having some gameplay content coming here to the channel as well. So make sure you stay tuned, make sure you tune back in for the gameplay, because we'll be showing this off so that you can decide if it's going to be the right game for you. In this video, I want to talk about the three things that really go into making this a unique dungeon crawl when it comes to stealth activations. So, here on the main board, I want to talk about the way that you actually maneuver around, trying to avoid detection instead of just rushing headlong into a troop or group of enemies. I want to talk about how weapons work, creating sound that bursts through walls and potentially causes more trouble for you, and how patrol units will be the things hunting you down, not screaming zombies rushing for you because they know exactly where you are. I want to talk about the escalation track as well, how it starts expanding the threat around the board and eventually will trigger an alarm that will make the mission near unbeatable. And I want to talk about our heroes and their activation phase, how you can actually work between all of them, utilizing their movement and special abilities, the cards that they have, the weapons that they're utilizing, and you can make your action flow sequence between all players however you would like. It's something that I really appreciate when it comes to a game that requires you to think tactically and then respond in bad situations. So, let's talk about Earth Under Siege, and let's start here with just a touch of flavor text. Earth Under Siege. Things weren't going great here on Earth to begin with. The planet was heating up, causing displacement and food shortages across the globe. Years of trade wars and crumbling diplomacy had led to the countries of the verge of all-out war. Extremist groups were springing up like weeds all around the world, not the least of which were the Vamuk, a terrorist organization sowing havoc and death along the Russian-Ukrainian border. The stability of human life was balanced on a knife's edge, but that was before the invasion, before the aliens. Now things are much worse. They call themselves the Xethan, and they appear seemingly from nowhere. If they came from the stars, there are no obvious signs. There are no starships in orbit or landing craft that we've seen. They were just here one moment, and in indicating global conquest the next. They attacked with a ferocity, a single-minded brutality that is frightening to behold. Even worse, they appear to have help. The terrorists known as the Vamak seem to be working with the Zenith, speaking out their own species for some unknown reward. Why would they assist the invader that seems determined to destroy or dominate all life on this planet is unknown, but the Vamak are clearly assisting the Zenith, and while military intelligence as well as logistics support. But even in these darkest times, there is hope. A once fractured humanity have now found a common purpose. In the shadow of annihilation, humans have finally realized that we are all one people, standing alone in the vast reaches of space. We must stand together or die alone. So this is Earth Under Siege. And like I said, in this video, I'm going to focus on some of the showcase elements that make this stand out in the dungeon crawl space. Let's start with the concept of how you interact with the board here. So, it's going to be a classic dungeon crawler in a lot of ways. You're going to be spawning minions, you're going to be maneuvering around the board, doing your best to take them out, and of course accomplish your objective, which is rescuing someone, opening a door, killing everyone, taking down the big boss. You kind of get what dungeon crawlers do. And this will be a modular campaign, so you'll be playing through a expanding and opening narrative as you dive into it, something that I'm still working on exploring here in the prototype. But the thing that makes this so different from classic dungeon crawlers is going to be the fact that you're maneuvering around specifically to avoid detection. You're going to be spawning and triggering various different enemy mob spawn points, from opening doors to moving down hallways. Anytime you come in line of sight of one of these little blip tokens, you'll be drawing a spawn card over here, and determining exactly who is popping up on the board. We have right now our grunts and our fire team, and I grabbed a helter-skelter of various different miniatures to put on the table here so you could get a sense of some of the models in the game, but this isn't how a board will always look. As you're moving around, you're going to be triggering different spawns. These spawns will react with a surprise token, saying that they have potentially been aware of your presence, and you'll be rolling dice to try to avoid detection. If you're successful with that, they're not going to do anything. They're going to be perfectly silent and still and peaceful, unaware of the fact that you just skirted through a hallway. But if they turn surprised, you're going to have to figure out how to deal with them, because what you do not want to happen is for anyone to be aware of you long enough to start the alarm, which happens at the start of their activation phase. So, the object for you is now to respond accordingly to whatever just spawned in that area. You turn a corner, you find 3 robots and a grunt holding a baton, and you're unable to avoid detection. Well, now it's time to get to action. Firing shots down the hallway might be a little bit too loud. Sneaking up close and slitting a knife in between their crevices is more effective, but also harder to accomplish and takes a lot more of your resources to do it. That's where the puzzle of this game starts opening up. This is going to be a team-based dungeon crawl where even if you're playing solo, you're still going to be running AI characters that are modified for solo gameplay. You don't have to worry about as much of the stats and systems, but the concept of the game is really utilizing every skill and ability that your squad has, which is a core function of what you're doing on the table here. You see, different people will be better at different skills. Opening doors, hacking through programs, taking out spy cameras, moving down hallways without being seen, and of course sneaking up close enough that they can slide that knife in between the shoulder blade and the heart. So, the main board here, it differs from a classic dungeon crawler in the sense that you don't have the constant escalation of minions rushing in your direction. Instead here, you're maneuvering around, trying your best to figure out what corner is the right one to take, how many people can you get across a gap, and who's going to succeed or potentially fail at some of those different checks. Sometimes you send your weakest, most bumbling idiot ahead of you, because if he messes up, you need to react appropriately. And all of your actions are going to be limited, but they're also going to be super adaptive and super flexible. The other cool thing about this board here is going to be how the actual hunting and searching tokens work. You see, when a green blip turns into a yellow blip, that yellow blip will now be a patrol blip. And anytime you make noise on the board, they're going to start coming to investigate. Say you fire a shot. Let's say you get detected. Someone radios in. Let's say there's a sense of where you are. They're going to slowly start moving in your direction. If they come into line of sight, of course, you'll be making an evasion roll, spawning more minions. But the cool part about this is instead of you being the primary hunter, you're also constantly being hunted, but not hunted by someone that knows exactly where you are. So you can always stay one step around a corner, duck into a room just in time for them to pass by the outside and check that investigation token. Now, every token they come by, though, every noise or disarmed bodyguard around the visage here is going to pop down onto the escalation track, and this will continue to press the game. When you pass one of these yellow blips, you're going to be spawning another one of your hunters onto the board who, again, don't know where you are, but they'd certainly love to find out, and they're going to be collecting more tokens as the game continues. At the very end there, you're going to be spawning someone who knows exactly who you are, where you are, and they're going to be coming after you, and you're going to be triggering the alarm. The alarm is going to activate everyone. It's going to get rid of the entire concept of this being a spacious, a spacious environment where no one is aware of who or where you are. Instead, everyone's on high alert, and everyone is chasing you down to the best of their ability. It turns much more into a classic dungeon crawl rush, except in this one, you've really messed up, and the odds of you surviving are almost nothing. This game demands that you play as a stealth operative. It demands that you think about the turns and the actions that you're taking. You think about how you're moving around the board environment and how and when you can take down bad guys, because you can't leave them standing. It feels amazing to pass through a hallway, have something go not quite according to plan, and react within a split second to keep the board from just exploding. And you always know that you're one step away from everything turning on, from sirens blaring, from lights going up, from this detective, this searcher, this hunter seeking you down and actually coming across you. One mistake can really spell doom and despair. But that makes the game tense. It makes the game fun. It's what you want when you're trying to be a stealth operative. So, that's the main board and the escalation track in a way, but let's talk about our player characters and the thing that I think makes them stand out so much. Every character is going to specialize in various different skills, weapons, items. That's classic to a dungeon crawl and maybe not too unique. You're also going to be exploring for different resources, and the game has a lot of really fun pieces of gear that you can buff up, that give you more activations, that allow you to do things like noise and stealth checks. But one of the cool things about the gear that you're utilizing in this game is every piece of gear is built around the concept of more effective stealth play. So cloaking devices that allow you to sidestep, robot hackers that allow you to turn off a camera split seconds before it sees you, and the ability to manipulate where people are perceiving their investigation tokens should go. Along with that, different types of weapons are going to have different types of constraints, noise modifiers. For instance, if I'm firing a gun down this hallway and there's someone over here in this room, I might want to think about how far that noise will go and who might hear it. Because as soon as they become activated, again, I have another problem on my hands. If they're aware of my presence, they're going to start moving in our direction. And if they start moving in our direction and they're activated when their turn starts, all hell's going to break loose. So, the combination of stealth play, gear that tactically works to your advantage, and cool weapons that give you the option to decide how and when you press your luck with a lot of noise in this environment is paired up and combined with really, really fun card play. You're going to have a stack of unique cards for each character that you're playing as, and these cards are going to be built off a system where the first top action you're able to do as long as you spend the corresponding action or resource for it. But as you move down, you're going to have skill dice. And these skill dice are going to be gained when you do actual attack and stealth rolls. So these are a little bit hard to come by. But they're going to give you items and tokens that start buffing your actual cards. So the cards correspond to everything that you're doing. The more powerful you are, corresponds to the more actions you've taken. And these cards are going to have cool passive and in-game permanent effects depending on what you're playing. So you're going to have a hand of, I believe, 15 cards. You'll be drawing a few of them up, and anytime a card tells you to draw anything, it'll be coming from this deck, particularly unless it says otherwise. And these decks will start expanding and growing as you play the game, getting more and more customizable units, abilities, and card types to really specialize your character. But all that has already been said, and I still haven't focused on the one thing that I think is so cool about Earth Under Siege, and it is the action utility. It's the free-form movement that you have. Instead of a dungeon crawl where it tells every player you have to go a certain order or a certain hierarchy at a certain time, whether it's turn order or resolving all of your actions when you start your turn, this game breaks that rule. This game says you can use any of your actions at any point whenever you would like. It doesn't have to be in turn order. And what's so nice about that is it allows you the flexibility to react to bad things happening on the board in a way that a stealth operative really needs to be able to react. It requires you to be flexible. So on my turn, I have 3 action tokens and 3 movement tokens. But every cycle, every time I pass and refresh, every time the enemy phase happens and it gets back to my turn, I'm only going to be recovering 3 of these tokens back up into my available pool. So I really want to spend about 3 tokens a turn. Here's the problem. Sometimes and oftentimes you need to push yourself in order to do more. You need that last shot, that last step out of the way to avoid detection, but you're expending your resources and making it harder for you to react on the very next round. You're escalating the game in a kind of tense way. You're screwing future you in a turn or two down the road in order to get what you need now. Because if you pass down a hallway and someone blips open and they know you're there, you have not avoided detection, you suddenly find yourself spending every activation you have to take them out. Because you have to. Because the threat of having the alarm triggered is just significantly too great. But here's the problem. You've now created a lot of noise. You have more people that are sort of aware of you. You have hunters and trackers heading in your direction, and you now need to deal with that, which is a real issue. Now, I like how this works so much, because it also means that someone who's already taken 3 activations this turn could still step back down a hallway and fire their gun one last time, expending the last bit of their resources, but taking out that enemy moments before the enemy phase starts. The flexibility and action utility, the way that it actually feels like you're playing as a squad sitting down at a table instead of one person, taking their hierarchy of turns way before anyone else has been bothered, is really, really nice and really, really refreshing. So that's the core concept on the table here. That's what we're playing with, right? And like I said, I still have a lot of things I need to dig into, but so far what I'm seeing has me incredibly intrigued. I like a stealth game, and this one is doing its very best to highlight and celebrate the concept of stealth play in a tabletop setting. I don't know that I've played something that has as much streamlined stealth elements as possible. For instance, the flexibility in player actions, also the iconography allowing you to roll and resolve dice very simply, the way that mobs don't attack with every single unit in a mob, but they'll do a single dice roll that's modified by the amount of units that are actually in that spawn point. That is really nice. Combined with that, stealth checks don't have to be resolved with every single unit that might be seeing you. You're resolving it for the lowest, the hardest one to beat across that whole hallway, and assuming you pass that one, you've passed all of them collectively. There's a lot of little tweaks in here that make this game so accessible and so great to sit down and play. For instance, solo mode. When I want to run a squad, like I mentioned before, I actually debuff one of my characters in a way by removing some of the extra management that a solo player would need to do, but it makes me be able to run a party while focusing on my hero, but still having the skills and the necessary abilities that the game requires when you're diving into a delve. Every little element, every little tweak and customization this game has been thought through, and while there may be some that I would still like to see adjusted and twisted, and expansions that I'd like to see, and modifiers that I'd like to see, I do think that a lot of time and development work has been put into Earth Under Siege, and I am thoroughly impressed with where it currently is. So, that's my stance, that's what I'm saying. Thank you for watching, thank you for being here. If you enjoyed this video, I don't know, leave a comment down below or something, let me know when you'd like to see a gameplay video, probably within the next week or so, that's the hope. And with that, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.